Where's my window?
Hey, good morning, mediums. It's season 2, episode 37. Welcome to Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-hosts, Scott Moon and Ralph Kern. And today, the best-selling author of the Dying Days zombie series, the Dirty Deeds thriller series, host of the Armcast Podcast and the Mondo Mention podcast, Armand Rosamilia joins the show. He's been writing and publishing and podcasting full-time for 6 years. And today he joins us to talk about his writing journey. Armand, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. Thank you. And you got my name right, which was cool.
Yes.
First time.
Nailed it.
Good job,
Hey,
Josh.
We'll give him an award. We'll give him an award.
Josh is going to move to the big time now and leave a small fish behind because he can now.
Because I'm a pro now.
He pro'd that, like, for sure.
I pro every week. It's the same script almost that I read word for word, and every week I mess it up. I don't know how you could do that. I really don't.
It's like Armand with his podcasting background is probably watching our pre-show going, "Oh my God, what have I done? Why am I here?"
I do it completely. I have no notes in front of me most of the time. Like I know the guest name, and like we'll just start talking. And I realize, oh, okay, they wrote something. I mean, that's pretty much how I
do some writing stuff. Well, yeah, our original concept of the show was like some writer friends having a beer at the bar, and we're just hanging out someplace, and it's not supposed to be super stressful. We're not.
Half the time, I don't even remember Ralph's name.
Well, yeah, thanks for that, mate.
Who?
Although I'm doing my Illuminati impression.
Ralph is tricky because Ralph's got a couple of names and super secret and all that stuff.
And he likes to hide. And you're like the Inspector Gadget. What's the guy off the Inspector
Dr. Claw.
Dr. Claw.
It's like we're interviewing somebody who like left the mafia or something. Their face is blacked out and their voice is all changed.
I'm currently blinding myself with a lamp here. So
Armand, we all mentioned in the pre-show that we have beard envy. Your beard is fantastic. And this is he said it was 2 weeks growth. This is my 2 weeks growth. If you're watching on the show, Hank Garner's in the chat. So is Chuck. Ken, how are you guys? Laura, KV1, how are you guys doing today? Armand, for our viewers and listeners who may not know anything about you, would you please share a little bit about yourself and how you got started in writing?
I like long walks on the beach.
And
as
does Ralph.
When I look at your beard, I think long walks in the beach for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you see my body, you think nothing that has to do with walks.
Everybody on the beach.
I definitely have a writer's body.
Me too.
Okay, well, we'll text each other later. You and me later.
I started writing, like everyone else at a very young age, 12 years old. Huge Dean Koontz fan, and that got me started. And I wrote horrible Dean Koontz stories until I was about 18. I got my first story actually published when I was still in high school at 18 for a little zine back in the 90s. And for the young kids out there, look up zine and what they used to be before the internet. And then I basically wrote on and off for many, many years. But about 6 years ago, I got serious with it again. I had done retail management for 25 years, and it felt like 125 years. And I just had the chance. I got laid off, and I had the chance to start writing full time while I was looking for another job, and I never looked back.
That's awesome.
I think it's interesting how many writers have made their career off of losing a career.
Yeah, it was definitely if I ever run into my district manager or regional manager or any of those people who were actually kind of upset that they had to let me go, I would hug all of them and say thank you, because I'm making more money now and I get to walk around in my underwear, which I couldn't do at the store for some reason. So.
I frown on that.
It always comes up in your annual eval, the whole underwear thing.
You're doing great, but please put some pants on.
Yeah.
This is why we like doing the show, because we don't have to wear pants.
Why?
We don't have to wear pants on the show either.
When we were during the pre-show, we were talking about one of your story concepts. Obviously, you have a bunch of them because you can't just have a story concept this cool in isolation. But it's the Cthulhu Unicorn mashup thing. Can you tell us about that? Because I'm still reading.
I wrote a book. Actually, the original one was serialized about 5-6 years ago. Keyport, Cthulhu. And Keyport is a real town in New Jersey. I lived there for a couple of years. It's like that little quaint little fishing village, which if you walk around and you look at the locals, I mean, not now, but back then when I lived there 20 years ago, it was basically something out of Lovecraft. I mean, it was just a weird little town. And I always remembered that and always had stories. And so when I started doing Keyport Cthulhu, I wrote like a 5-part serialized, like 8 to 10,000 word short story that all kind of, it fit into the same thing. So it was basically Lovecraft, but set in New Jersey. And I had a great time with it. My daughter at the time was 11. And whenever I wrote, I used to get up. At that point, I was basically just writing in the living room, dining room, wherever I could find a spot. And as I was walking around, she sat down and she was like, "What are you writing?" And one thing led to another. She actually started typing for me while I was pacing. And of course, then once you get to a bad word, you got to go, "Just put a question mark there, honey, and I'll fill that in later." And so by the end of the day, we were having a lot of fun with it. And she was really big into unicorns at 11. So I said, "Why don't we write something fun together?" And so we took unicorns and Cthulhu and we mashed them together. And I wrote the Cthulhu part and she wrote the unicorn parts. And it was a Cthulhu Unicorn. If you got to say that all real slow or you mess it up. And we wrote this, goofy little story about a unicorn and Cthulhu falling in love and having little babies. And I just added it at the end of the book as, just for something fun with a couple of short stories. And then it sold, but it never sold great. And I got involved in a lot of other stuff. I mean, I have about 150 releases at this point. So wow. I'm promoting other stuff. And a fan, Chuck Buddha, basically loved, this was his favorite book. This is the book that he got into for me. And he said, "You have to bring this back. You have to, update it or whatever." And I said, "Chuck, write me a short story and I'll add it to it as like a bonus." And he ended up writing me 2 short stories that I loved. I put both of them in there. And I added a couple of short stories that I had written set in this universe, but I've never released. And we put it out. So now my daughter's 16. So we put her name on the cover. And so she's very embarrassed that she's got this story. And I said, "You know what? At 16, I wasn't published, and I also didn't get paid because I gave her a couple of bucks for the story." So
there you go. So when she has prom dates come over, you can say, "Hey, by the way, let's talk about your writing career," and you can show that off.
It's funny. She's in high school now, and a couple of her teachers are actually fans of mine. They actually read my stuff. So when they saw at the beginning of the year, they saw Rosamilia. They saw in the class the first day. They said, "Is your father a writer?" And she was like, "Oh, yes." I said, "You know what, though? That's good for you. That might get you some good grades. You might be able to slacken those classes."
It might, depending on,
I can get you a free hardback signed book.
Exactly.
If you just tweak that grade just a little bit.
Are you sure it's a C? Here's a bookmark from my dad.
I can redshirt you in the next book or something.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, we basically exist as parents to embarrass our kids. That's pretty much...
what our parents did it to us, so why not pass it down?
Good time.
So your newest release, if Amazon is not screwing with me, is Dying Days 8, and that's something in your zombie series. Is that right?
Yeah, that's Dying Days was kind of the catalyst for me getting to write full time as well as losing the job. Oh, we got hat switches going on here.
I know. I was hoping nobody noticed.
What?
I was going to ask
nicely done, Scott.
Trivia question.
I'm taking my shirt off right now. That's it.
I'll do it. Shirt's off.
I got pearl snaps.
Dying Days for me. Dying Days was my extreme zombie series. Originally, a publisher had put out a call, and I had never written anything zombie. I'd never even read zombie fiction, and then I picked up The Rising by Brian Keene. And just fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, you can do something different with zombies. So I started the Dying Day series about 2009, or actually started writing about 2008. And the 8th book will come out in June this year. And then in November, the 9th and final book of the series will come out.
Cool.
I'm just looking at the covers now, and I really love the subtlety to the covers. It took me a moment to sort of twig sort of what's going on there. But it looks like you basically, as each of the books comes along, you've got a bunch of zombies getting closer and closer to someone on a beach, is that? Or in a desert?
What happens is it's 9 books, so it's if you put all 9 together, it forms one picture.
Oh,
So it's a beach.
Okay.
It's a beach scene, but if you put like at signage, you do 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. It forms one picture.
Oh, I can see that even in the thumbnail. That's brilliant, and a good way to get people to buy paperbacks, I imagine.
Yeah. I do real well with them at book signings because of that. Once you line them up like that, it's pretty cool.
You're like a Cthulhu Unicorn genius or something. I thought I'd push my vocabulary.
He said
I'm quoting you on the back of my next book on that one. So.
There you go.
In quotes, Cthulhu genius.
It's like an evil genius, but it's also, doesn't embarrass your 16-year-old.
That's awesome.
Well, I see you've got quite a few celebrity endorsements here on your webpage.
Yeah, very big,
including Krusty the Clown and Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton.
Me and Paris go way back. So
the Zombie Days book. Can you give us kind of the rundown on the idea for that and what's the story about?
It started at 9 Days started because again a publisher was looking for an extreme horror novella. So I wrote one actually called Highway to Hell. And it's basically the premise is the zombies don't want to just bite you; they also want to sexually violate you.
That's some bad zombies, right?
Yeah, and it was and there wasn't a lot. Well, actually, in the beginning there was. I've changed some of it, but the idea was worse than me writing about. I had a guy at a book signing say when I started explaining to him, he says, "Oh, rapey zombies," and he bought the whole series. So
rapey zombies.
That's what he said, rapey zombies, and he ended up buying them. So,
well, good. Making a sale.
Yeah, so it's extreme zombie stuff, but it's mostly about the characters. I mean, and they've progressed. They've basically, I guess, the zombies have kind of grown up as the series has progressed. So I've gotten away from the first couple of books with the premise that they're going to rape you. I mean, just the thought of it is horrific enough without me having to write any of that. Thank God.
Yeah, all about what's off screen.
Well, I find that quite interesting on a couple of levels. But I mean, the first one is I think I'd probably like many a shift worker who works with a partner. You start to wonder, or you start to talk about what would we do come the zombie apocalypse, and you can come out with a zombie plan because we figure there's only two kinds of people in the world: those with a zombie plan and food. But the second one is like, what happens after a zombie apocalypse? Because you got all these zombies, but how do they become self-sustaining? And I'd suggest is that how the zombie rape features into it? Is that can they actually reproduce, or is it?
No, it's just the violence. It's more of that rape mentality. They just rip you apart, in different ways and stuff. For me, watching like 28 days later and then 28 weeks later, I thought the brilliance of 28 weeks later in the beginning was they ran out of food. They all just basically all the zombies died off. So for me to sustain this, I wanted to do it over a long period of time. So I basically had the zombies where they morph as the series progresses, they change, they evolve. So they become something completely different by the time you're 6 or 7 books into it,
right? That
it makes sense that zombie makes sense that they can basically, they're not just all going to just run out of people to eat and food, and they're all just going to rot and die.
Well, zombies. There's so many versions of zombies. Is what do you do to make them more horrifying?
Right.
You make them even more. I had something more, and then I lost my train of thought because that's what I did.
Because Terry Team said, "I dare you to Google zombie rape."
Done.
No, it's interesting to me that zombie fiction is such a tight genre. When you get into you read zombie, and, you're going to get horror, but then you took it one step forward and do extreme horror.
They also have zombie comedy too. Anyway, go ahead.
There is zombie comedy too, but is there a different, some people take different takes on zombies where they it's a medical thing or it's a disease thing? Do you have
nanobots?
Do you have a reason why the zombies have started, or is that just
I know what the reason is, and I won't actually reveal that until the 9th book. In the books, though, in the different things, some of the characters theorize over how this started or where it started or whatever, and there's actually hints in the series. But I never wanted that to be the focus or the main thing, and it's basically the survivors. So once the world goes to hell, I didn't want them to have all the information. So there's a lot of misinformation between as groups meet each other and different things like that of what they think really happened. There's kind of a funny part in one of the books where there's like 6 or 7 people sitting around, basically eating and having a break and basically talking about, no, I heard it happened this, I heard it happened here. And they give all these completely different theories. But in the end, it doesn't. One of them basically says, it doesn't matter because we're here now and we're just trying to, find our next meal kind of thing.
Yeah, they're still gonna eat your face. I think it's Josh's fault. It's usually when I can't figure out a zombie apocalypse reasoning, like I'm watching The Walking Dead. I'm really concerned they don't really know and they're not ever going to tell us. And then, but I say, well, it must be Josh's fault. I'm sure.
It probably is Josh's
that's
fault.
That's why these zombies are so handsy.
Actually, can we
wait a minute?
Can we cut this part out of this because that actually is the end of my book. It actually is.
Okay.
It comes down
Spoiler
to
alert.
Spoiler alert. Not only is it my fault, but that's why the zombies are handsy and rapey.
Oh God!
They're also big fans of Firefly too. So
yes.
All the zombies really want is to eat little brains, kick back at their pad when they get home, and watch some Firefly and chill. They're really misunderstood.
In their underpants.
right.
Their zombie underpants.
But
You mentioned
sorry,
you mentioned you had 150 releases, and one of the other series that you write is the Dirty Deeds series. I think you said that was a crime thriller.
It's a crime thriller, yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had an idea that was, I obviously I read a lot of horror stuff, so it tends to be dark. And the original premise I had for this was, it was basically was about a hitman who basically gets paid to kill children, and then the idea would be how he deals with that emotionally and everything else. And at the same time, Kindle Scout had started; they'd started accepting submissions. And I read the guidelines and everything else, and the story. I was writing a lot of really dark stuff at that point, and I said, you know what? I want to write something different. I've written contemporary fiction. I've ghostwritten a lot of different things, military romance and other stuff, and I wanted something for me, something that maybe my mom would actually read, And so it morphed into Dirty Deeds, which is the premise is a guy gets paid to kill children, but he doesn't actually kill them. He actually takes them from, say you're a rock star and you've knocked up a groupie and now this woman is threatening, to expose you or whatever with this baby. Basically, he goes and takes the baby, but he basically puts it into his own system so the baby is raised by loving parents and everything else. So that was basically the premise, and that became Dirty Deeds. And I put it in as a Kindle Scout, took a shot. I also made it where there's no profanity, there's no over-the-top sex or violence or anything. It was a very mainstream story for me, which was tough because I'm a Jersey Italian, so you say the F word every other word. And I caught myself a lot like, oh, wait, I can't use this word or that word or whatever. But and then it ended up winning a contract. The first book ended up winning a Kindle Scout contract, so I had the Amazon machine behind me for it. I've since put out book 2 and 3, and I have book 4 coming out. I self-published those after because I wanted a new book every 6 months. It's like a 50,000 word quick read type of book, and I didn't want to wait a year or a year and a half between books. But just having that first one out as a Kindle Scout winner, I guess there's about 200 of them. Scouts winners now. There was about 100 when mine came out last year. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely helped. And I've learned a lot from Amazon, like what you can and can't use on covers, what keywords to use on descriptions. When you go in normally as a self-publisher, you put in and you get like 2 or 3 categories to pick. Amazon put that in 14 different categories for me automatically. So, and then they run different sales and then promotions. So it's definitely helped, and it's helped my backlist of all my other books because I'm selling a lot more in the last year and a half than I ever did just because of that book.
Just for the benefit of our watchers, would you tell us what Kindle Scout is?
Kindle Scout is basically you're getting an Amazon, you're getting a Kindle Press contract. So they work as a publisher, and they give you a $1,500 advance against your royalties, plus, again, the Amazon marketing machine and everything else. And basically, there's a bunch of different things. People go in and vote for your book based on the cover, based on the first 2 chapters or 3 chapters. But then there's all these other factors that they don't tell you, because there's people who have gone on there and gotten like thousands and thousands of views and thousands of basically votes for their book and then don't make it. And then other ones don't, but Amazon sees something in that book that they really like. They don't take horror books. It's mostly, I mean, they go by romance first, thriller second. Horror is usually like the 12th or 13th selling genre out there anyway. So they're taking the top 3 or 4 and putting these books out.
It's interesting that I know another guy, Ernie Lindsay, who had a book selected out of Kindle Scout, which was the first book in his Graveyard series. And I want to read the first sentence of your first Dirty Deeds book, which caught my attention and now makes me want to read the book. And this kind of goes back to The Martian too. Well, that first sentence grabs you and pulls you in and slaps you in the face. And the first sentence of chapter 1 of Dirty Deeds book 1 is, "I get paid large sums of money to kill children." If that doesn't just like slap you in the face and say this is a book you need to read, honestly, it's on par with what's The Martian. I'm pretty much fucked is what the beginning of The Martian starts.
Yeah.
I love those kind of gripping first lines.
Yeah, and that's not easily done. Everybody knows it's important. Every writer tries to have a first line that punches you out. So having one that good is pretty impressive. I want to slip back over our live chat. Brought up some things when you're talking about Amazon helping you understand book covers and things. And I recently ran into the same problem with my pen name as far as guns on the covers of books. Right. And I tried to run an Amazon Marketing Services ad for it, and it rejected it. It said the gun's pointed at the camera or at another character, and they refused to do that. So I guess my question would be, do you think it would be a good idea to change that book cover altogether? Because I bought it as a pre-made. It cost me $45. It has a guy pointing a gun. It's a thriller type thing.
The original Dirty Deeds cover we did had 2 baseball cards, because in the story, James Gaffney is a huge Atlanta Braves baseball card collector, and he sells baseball cards on the side as a side business. So there was a lot of that. So I had 2 baseball cards and a baby pacifier and 3 bullets and some blood. And they immediately said, you can't have the bullets, you can't have the blood on the cover. But they kind of helped me because they marketed these books for like Janet Ivanovich or Carl Heisen fans.
Right.
They said this is your fan. So when we went back and we redid the cover, the way we did them was basically they said any guns, any weapons, any bullets, blood, swastikas, any of this stuff that people always say, you put a chick in a thong with a gun and a swastika behind it, and you're a bestseller on Amazon. Well, that's not true. Those books aren't even being found anymore. They're knocking that stuff down. And especially, there's a ton of humor in my books. It's fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, so that was the other thing with them. Once they read it, they said, your cover makes it very dark with bullets and blood and all that. So let's do something with the stack of money and the baseball cards and the pacifier, and let's do that. So, and as I've done, book 2, book 3, book 4, and I have covers done for several more in line, they're all without the weapons, without really that dark. I mean, big bright colors. It's a bright blue cover, and the next one's a bright yellow. The third one's set in Philadelphia, so it's like this, Philadelphia Phillies pink with a cheesesteak on the cover. So
like But I guess is it genre or audience specific, or as a general rule, are guns something you should be careful with?
They're basically Amazon from working with their editors. It's a general rule. not to have something, basically on the cover so prominent. I had a collection. One of the original Dying Days collections was, I think, 2 of the books and then a couple of the offshoot books. And the cover, I just used, a guy had done a picture of these two scantily clad, women with blood all over them, basically in bikinis coming at you. And when I put the book out, they actually listed it as erotica. So nobody could find my book, and I eventually just took the collection down because I wasn't selling it but it was because of the cover.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because if you look at, like, I've just been scrolling through Amazon, trying to find covers with guns on them, and if you look at mainstream general fiction, you don't see a lot. Where you do see a lot is steampunk and science fiction. You will see weapons on the cover, and
they're not as real, I guess. Maybe.
But yeah, maybe it's just because they're not a real weapon. They don't mind that.
Because especially crime thrillers, you used to see a ton of them where the cover was basically a handgun on a table or somewhere, or a couple of bullets. I mean, those kinds of, and now a lot, especially the bigger authors, have gone completely away from that. Now you have more palm trees and fast cars and women and things like that.
I'm just looking at Elmore Leonard's books, and it occurred to me that your Dirty Deeds covers are very similar,
right, in
terms of tone. Is that sort of a conscious decision to sort of model it somewhat on those kind of
definitely.
The bright colors.
I think Elmore Leonard, Tim Dorsey, Janet Ivanovich, when I really sat down and looked at their covers, and I mean, those are authors that you put their name on the cover and it's going to sell. So that was the challenge for me, to get something interesting. But I definitely wanted to go with the big bright colors to let the people know, hey, it's a crime thriller, but it's also fun. There's a lot of humor. There's a ton of interaction between characters, goofing on each other and doing different things. So, that was, you read the first sentence and a lot of people are like, I don't want to read this. This is going to be horrible and everything else. But then, once you get into it, you realize, okay, this guy's doing something, he's not actually killing children, which is nice.
Right. Well, I think
sort of thing you can see getting picked up for a movie at some point, or a TV series, can't you? That kind of concept.
Well, hopefully somebody's listening right now, because you know what, I'm all for
it. Well, and that's the thing too, is a lot of books, even if they're a kind of a darker nature book, if the voice of the book is fun, then a lot of readers will forgive the dark nature of the book, right. Like the snarky kind of sarcastic first-person character narrative, which it looks like you've done for this series. A lot of viewers were like, he just shot somebody in the face 4 times, but he was making a joke when he did it, so it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that works. I mean, I just finished a book by Dan Padavona called Crawl Space, and it's very dark, and that's the way he wrote it. But by the end, I mean, literally by the end of this book, I literally had a nightmare the night I finished it about being in a crawl space, because it is so dark and moody, and there's like no hope in this book. And but that's the way he wrote it. I don't like writing those. I like having some kind of breaks or humor. Even the Dying Days series, as much as the premise is dark and everything, you need those highs and those lows, or it all basically goes across as just this dark thing,
And that's a way people deal with adversity. I mean, there's a lot of places where you come across something that's just too much to really just get down on, and so I know a lot of people make inappropriate jokes at inappropriate times, but it's because of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Right. You do that so you don't lose your mind. That's maybe why we invented humor.
Yeah, it's a great tension.
Also to make fun of Josh. That's the other reason.
It's a great tension reliever, isn't it? I mean, I remember what film I really enjoyed was Event Horizon, which wound up the tension, wound it up, and just to the point where you feel like you're going to pop. There's like a little smattering of humor in it. It just helps bring you down a level before going into the final run. But
Event Horizon was a man.
It was very traumatic. I'm still traumatized from that. I worked in a movie theater when it came out. I literally think it damaged me. And
the girl I was dating at the time, when I watched that, she literally had nightmares for like 2 weeks after that book or after that movie. And then I was like a few years later, we met up like on Facebook or something like that and reconnected. And immediately I sent her a picture of the Event Horizons movie poster. She was so mad at it. It was funny. I mean, it was worth it to me, but she didn't appreciate it so much.
Thanks for
that.
Chuck Manley mentioned Deadpool as one of the things that is extremely graphic and also snarky. And what's funny to me is you watch the commercials and you're like, yeah, this is an adult movie. And then everybody who was talking about Deadpool was like, yeah, this is an adult movie. And then when the movie released, you still saw parents complaining, I can't believe I took my 4-year-old to that movie. And I'm like, oh, it's there. It's all over the place. You shouldn't have taken your kid to that movie.
Yeah.
So you also go ahead, Ralph.
I was just going to say, John L. Monks asked the question. Looking back at a previous point we covered, were you happy with the Kindle Scout program, and put it on a scale of 1 to 10?
No, John, you got to give me the scale thing. I would put it at a solid 8. I was very happy with the way I was handled, all the information. I mean, I wasn't given a ton of information. They're not going to do that, but all the information I was given as far as the covers and the editing was great. All that part of it I thought was great, and then the initial promotion on and everything. I think as they added more, 2 or 3, 4 books a month, it's gotten to the point where I don't think I think they need more staff. Let me put it that way. I'm kind of glad that I didn't put my second book in. I'm glad that I got that kick for the first one, but I don't think I would do it again. But I would definitely, if I hadn't done it already, I would definitely put in. You should put one book in, even just for the good part is, even if your book isn't accepted, Amazon will still tell everybody who voted for it when your book is out, if you self-publish it or if you. Yeah, so they'll send you an email. So like I'll vote on books that don't make it, and I'll still get an email, hey, this book is now available. Because, they're going to give you the Amazon link because they're still going to make money off of it.
And with the information that I've learned from Kindle Scout and from a couple other people that have done it, they give you kind of an advance. When they purchase your book off the Scout, they give you an advance, and then your royalty share is a little bit less than had you published it yourself. But they do that because they give you the Amazon push when it comes to marketing and things.
Well, yeah, and I've seen a ton. People have mentioned a ton of my ads have been out there on Facebook, on Twitter, obviously on Amazon. If you like this book, you'll like this book. So it's definitely helped, and then it's obviously it's Amazon exclusive, it's Kindle exclusive. So you're getting page reads. Now they still do the old school page reads. Once your book has been read 10% or more, then you get it counts as getting paid for your book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does that show up on your KDP stats, or do they
no, it's a whole different Amazon royalty statement. Basically, you pick up at the end of every month for 2 months previous.
Gotcha.
So, but now they've actually just started a thing for us where we actually I can look in real time and see where my books are being sold, who's buying them, what country, what part of there's a ton of information I've purposely stayed away from because I'd probably just sit there for 8 hours and wait for the next sale and go, oh, it's a 14-year-old girl in Memphis who likes to ride her bicycle,
Would you recommend a new author, or probably not a high level already author that's got a huge fan base, but an entry level to mid level author? Would you recommend Scout to them, or would you say do it yourself?
I definitely would. I look at it. I'm a hybrid author. I don't just self-publish. I also work with a lot of different small presses, and I've dabbled in the bigger companies on anthologies. And I've also ghostwritten several books for a Hollywood film company. So I try to do as much as I can. And there's a lot of big, big publishing authors that are in Scout. I mean, it's amazing. You see some of the names. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a New York Times bestseller. And, just in the last couple of weeks, a couple of them have, put their books into Scout, because it's just a different way to do it, and it also helps you. Without it, I don't think I would be anywhere close with my back catalog selling than I am right now.
That's cool. I want to ask this question out of our chat thing, and then kind of add something to it that made me think about. So the question from KV1 is, where do you get your inspiration? The stories sound pretty unique. With that, it seems like you write quite a bit to fulfill all these roles, being full time. So I guess maybe you want to talk a little about your process, where you get your inspiration, and how you're so productive to be able to do Kindle Scout and your own stuff and all these other things.
When I first started about 6 years ago, I was just basically just sit down and you just write and you're done. About 4 years ago, I met who's now my wife. The last 2 years, we were married for 2 years, and she is a commercial property manager. So she deals with spreadsheets and money and all these other things, and I'm just creative and I'm just all over. And when we started getting serious, she said, well, how many words do you write a day? And I said, I don't know, a lot. And she said, well, do you keep track? And I said, I don't even know how to keep track. So she put together a spreadsheet for me, my money, all this other stuff, which is awesome. So now she kind of deals with the career part of it. And my goal is 1,096 words a day. And that would give me 400,000 words on the year. And as long as I keep in that range, I'm fine. Now, sometimes I'll get a contract, like the Hollywood guys will come to me and they'll say, we need 40,000 words in 3 weeks. So wow. I still have other stuff to do, but they give me a really big advance, basically a big chunk of money. So I write those stories. And then, it just depends on if I'm self-publishing it. Do I have my own deadline? If I'm working with a small press, do I have a deadline? And I'm a total pantser. I don't outline at all. I basically have index cards where I'll keep a couple of notes for the story. And I'll write, right now I have 10 different projects on my board, and I'll work on any one at any given time. I do, the podcast we do is the Mondo Method podcast, and that came because I do it's kind of started as a joke in naming it that, because my nickname is Mondo, but at the top of every hour, the first 15 minutes of the hour, I write. I do nothing else. So I'll just pull whatever book I'm feeling, and I'll just write for 15 minutes, which averages about 600 words or more in that 15-minute break. And then for the next 45 minutes, I go get a cup of coffee. I can go look at Facebook. I can email midget porn, whatever I want to do until the top of the next hour. And then I do another 15-minute sprint. So if I'm doing 2 or 3 15-minute sprints, my writing day is done. And it allows me to do all the promotion. It allows me to do 2 podcasts. I also own a podcast network. So I'm doing all of the business stuff for that as well. So I'm super crazy busy, but it definitely helps where I can break down each hour every day kind of into segments and say, okay, this is my goal is 4 sprints today.
How many hours do you work in a typical day?
Usually up, first cup of coffee is about 9 a.m. and about 5 or 6 when my wife comes home from work, I'll take a break. But a lot of times that means the laptop is on the couch with me, and I'll do, Twitter. I'll put stuff to the buffer, or I'm sharing podcasts, or I'm doing promotions or whatever. So it doesn't really end. We have tickets down here in Jacksonville. There's the Marlins AA team, so we have season tickets. So when they're in town, like tonight, 7 o'clock. I know I have a game tonight to go to, so I try to get everything done, before that.
When you talk about doing all these different projects, like for the Hollywood guys, and then for your other stuff that you work, you said that you have a board where you plan it. Do you also sit down and plan those projects out, or do you just go, okay, this is the idea for this plan, this is where I'm going to write at?
I actually have 2 dry erase boards. I have one for the podcast network with all the shows and everything that needs to be done on a daily and a weekly and a monthly. And then my other one is basically I'll write out the month, and I'll put in, I got 500 words on this story, and basically I do it out like that. And I also have an Excel spreadsheet with the schedule of all the books that need to be done and when the absolute deadlines are. I'm really good at, the Hollywood guys will go, okay, you have 21 days to write 40,000 words. I usually write about half of those words in the last 3 days. It's just the pressure of I have to get this done.
Sounds like my dissertation at university. Just a note on the Hollywood guys question. What are we talking about here? We're talking about scripts. We're talking about novelizations.
We're talking about novelizations. Sometimes it would be. I've been doing this for the fun is. I've been doing this for about 6 years too. So once I started writing full time, and I had put out the first 2 or 3 books, a publisher came to me and said, "Hey, we noticed you write a lot, and we like your stuff. Would you be interested in basically doing novelizations of movies coming out or scripts or different things?" So it's all different. Sometimes I'll get on a conference call with 6 guys, and they're basically all just throwing ideas. Okay, this is the next movie we're going to do. We're down the line, and I take notes and I write the book for them. Other times it's here's the dailies of the movie we're filming. Other times here's the movie done. Here's the screenplay. I mean, it's all different. There are a lot. I mean, they're cheesy B movies. There was I guess the one that is officially out is Zombies versus Navy SEALs.
I'll watch that. That's still watch that.
To give you an idea of the kind of the B movie stuff that
Sharknado. Please say you've done Sharknado.
No, that would because, but it's a lot of that type of. I used to do just a lot of zombies. Basically, it's a company that the guy is a former military guy, and everybody who's in the movie are all former military actual Navy SEALs who are starring in these movies. So they do a lot of these. They did like a kind of like a Point Break type of thing with narco subs, and I wrote that. And one it was on this giant yacht, and it was like the Russians vodka guy, or I mean, it's just all different random things. And basically, they just pitch me the ideas, and I say, "How much money? Okay, I'll do it." I did a military romance. I mean, I just whatever you want me to write, but it's helped me for my own stuff because it's stuff that's a lot of it's a little out of my comfort zone. You know, here rewrite this 10,000 word military romance that somebody wrote, you know, and make it into a novel. And
I'm looking at Navy SEAls versus zombies.
Before you do
the full movie.
I've just had a look on IMDb and have a look on who Vice President Bentley is.
Vice President Bentley
on IMDb. Do you think it's his other career?
Bentley. I don't find it.
What we should do while Josh is looking for that, we should have like anybody seen the People's Couch where they watch movies and comment on them? Sometime we should do one. We all watch Zombies versus Navy SEAls, and then we can all talk about it while we're watching it.
I've actually never watched the movie.
It's right there on YouTube. Full thing's available. So we'll read the book so we understand it first, and then we'll.
I've done like some of like people will go and they'll go down my list and they're like, "You did a book called Zombie Football?" And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Back in the game. I don't care if your arm's off. Come on.
You spotted it, Josh.
No, I can't. I'm probably
it's Rick Fox. Rick Fox is Vice President Bentley.
Oh, gotcha.
Maybe.
I'll check that.
He's
in a few of them.
Nice.
This show started off kind of like our typical. We're just cutting up and having a great time. We've gone through the middle of the show and got a ton of good information. And some incredible stuff there. I'm loving it. And now we're back into our zone of myths and capers. And I'm about to have. I might have a guest appearance. He's down here. My 6-year-old is. I think he wants to use my phone or something.
So tell us about. You mentioned your Mondo podcast, but. Talk to us about your Armcast podcast. I mean, it's basically a kind of an author interview deal, but can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do on the show?
Yeah, it started about 3.5 years ago. Actually, before that, I was on AM and then FM radio down here in Florida. A guy invited me to basically be on his radio station, and I was doing a Friday night show. And then it got to be too much. It was like an 1.5-hour drive, and it just got to be too much. So then I was listening to a lot of podcasts, so I decided, let me see if I can do this. So that's kind of how Armcast Podcast was born. And it's just very casual. I never have any interview questions. I mean, once you say, hey, I want to be on it, I don't do any research on you. And it's just like this. It's basically just people having a conversation. And we just hit 150th episodes a few weeks back, which was cool. And it's just a lot of fun. It's just and I meet a lot of people, and the cool part is you meet a lot of other authors. And for me, it energizes me on some days where I'm just sitting here like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you get somebody on who's like, oh, I write 4,000, 5,000 words a day. And, like first you're like, well, you're a dick, but
thanks for rubbing my nose in that and making me feel like a loser. Appreciate it.
Pretty much. Yeah. My wife can't listen to this episode, that kind of thing. But
right. Yeah. So you mentioned the podcast network. Is that the Project Entertainment Network?
Yeah. Project Entertainment Network. We were on a Project iRadio for about a year or so. And then the guy who was running it just got super, super crazy busy. And basically he said, more or less, do you want it? Do you want to buy it from me and take over? So, and I did. It's got some, really big names, doing podcasts and stuff. So it was a no-brainer. Of course, I said, yes. And then my wife said, hold on. How much is this going to cost? And she did the smart thing that we went through. So we're doing really well with it. I've had it since about November now. So
very nice. That's very cool. Go ahead, Scott.
And then how often are you doing shows on your podcast?
I'm still doing Armcast Podcast is every Friday. Never taking a break from it. And the same with the Mondo Method Podcast, which me and author Chuck Buda do together. That comes out every Wednesday morning. And we've been, I think we got 35 or 36 shows in so far.
Sweet. I like the Mondo Method, by the way. I'm going to try that out.
I was writing for like an hour and a half and doing like 600 or 700 words. And then when I do this, it's just super focused. Like I keep looking at the clock, like I have to finish this page or whatever, I mean, that's pretty much, how I look at it. And it definitely helps. It's that little mini pressure of just getting it done.
What about like, and we're kind of running out of some time, so you may or may not have a lot to say.
We got plenty of time.
But like, because I want to get back to all kind of whatever you're saying, and wherever you go, we follow you, and it's awesome. But I did want to ask about tools. Like, so do you use Word, Scrivener, Evernote? There's lots of different things. Sometimes those are popular questions. Is how do you actually?
I was always just pull up a Word doc and start writing, save it to an external drive, and then also save it to my my desktop as I'm writing on it. And then about 2 years ago, I had it got corrupted, everything, and I pretty much lost a bunch of stories, and I was totally pissed. And I mean, I just flipped out. And flipped out literally, I literally took the tower when I figured out I could not fix it or recover anything. I took it out into the backyard, and I jumped up and down on it and stomped on it. I mean, that's Jersey Italian in me,
If you come to that, I don't wish that on you by any stretch of the means, but if you're going to do that again ever, get a hold of us. We'll do it on the show. It'll be a good time because I'm sure there's lots of people that want to jump on some computers.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody said. Oh, why didn't you film it? I said I was so pissed right now. I would have broken my phone too.
Yeah.
But then I went to basically I use Google Drive, and then I have 2 different external drives that I automatically copy onto, and then I forget what the other one's called, but I do Cobalt or whatever it's called. So I back up
storage things.
Yeah, I do a storage thing, and then I write everything online. Basically, so as long as I have Wi-Fi, then I'm basically writing it, and it's auto saved as I go along, which is good.
Sort myself out on that because I've had some nervous moments myself.
It's not fun.
Most of my stuff is I'll back it. I'll save it on Dropbox through Scrivener, and then it backups to my hard drive, and then I back that up to an external hard drive because. Yeah. Man, I couldn't imagine this.
When I do it, which is just email myself. That's how I like that going.
Yeah, no joke.
I print it out and put it in the safe.
Well, you seem busy all the time, like you said. What do you have coming up this year? That new projects that you have?
Let me look. Well, I'll have in June Dying Days 8. And then that's right in time for a thing I did every year. Once I started seeing my sales about 4 or 5 years ago, I started seeing in June and November, the sales were usually bad months. So I started doing a thing in June. I do Summer of Zombie, a blog tour with me and other zombie authors. And then November, I do the Winter of Zombie blog tour. And because I've gotten so busy, last year, I basically gave it over to another author, Jay Wilburn, who is doing an amazing job with it. So I always schedule my Dying Days releases in June and then November for that. So November will be the last Dying Days book. In August, I'll have Dirty Deeds 4 will be out. And then Chelsea Avenue 2 and 3 will be out from Devil Dog Press. That's one of the publishers that I use. Green River Blend 3, they just put that out last month, which was the end to that trilogy. It's a horror story about coffee. And
wait, a horror story about coffee? How could there be horror and coffee? Coffee's my lifesaver. Is it being out of coffee?
Yeah, I'm a huge coffee drinker. If I don't have a cup of coffee, I immediately get a headache in the morning within like an hour. So it's just you drink this. It's called Green River Blend, and certain things basically are heightened from you. So you might become a serial killer, or a prolific writer, or a nymphomaniac, or whatever. And that was basically the premise behind that series.
Or a zombie.
Yeah. But when I do book signings, I basically, if somebody looks, I basically said it's a horror book about coffee. And then they say, tell me more. And I say, no, just start reading it. And then
you had me at coffee. Pretty much anything with coffee in it's probably worth consuming. Right.
Well, we had a really good turnout of the show today. Everybody watching on Monday morning. Thanks for coming and hanging out on a Monday morning. That was impressive. I didn't see JR, so we'll have to give him crap this week for missing the show.
We better send somebody out to check on him, check his welfare or something. Make sure he's okay.
Armand, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It was great to talk with you.
That was awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I apologize for the snafu on the laptop this morning. Here I am trying to do a sound check with him, and then my sound is not working. Like, he gets on my laptop, and I hear him, and I see him, and he can't hear me. And
at first I thought it was me. I tested it last night, and because it's the laptop I don't have on my desktop. I don't have a webcam, so I have to pull out the laptop to do it. And I also have new equipment, new podcast equipment. So it had never been plugged into the laptop before. So I got it all set, and then I'm like, oh man, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, good, it's you.
It's me. It's my fault. Because I should have done the sound check before I did the sound check.
The pre-sound check, sound check. The super secret pre-sound check, sound check.
Well, Armand, can you tell our audience where people can find more about you and your books?
Yeah, you can go to armandrosamilia.com. You can find me at author Armand Rosamilia on Facebook. Armand Author on Twitter. ProjectEntertainmentNetwork.com has my podcast and all the other podcasts. And I'll be all over the place. I do a ton of book signings and travel up and down the East Coast. So I'll be in Williamsburg, Virginia in July at Scares That Care Charity Weekend Convention. It's really awesome. So
very cool.
It'll be good. Good deal.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of the hour, and it's
by the way,
just
Josh,
flown by. What's up, Rob?
Is there anyone that needs to be mentioned?
Oh, maybe some sponsors.
Oh, sponsors. Yes, the sponsorship for this episode brought to you by BZ Hercules Editing Services. You can go to keystroke.medium.com/BZ Hercules, and that will redirect you to her site where you can get a 15% discount off all editing, proofing, her triangulation service, and more. The triangulation is a combination of editing, proofing, and beta reading, all at a special rate. Check that out. And she does great service. She does a quick turnaround, and you will not be disappointed. Also, we have still spots open for our sponsorship program. If you would like to,
brand new, ground level, groundbreaking sponsorship.
That is true. We have some sponsors already in works that we're just getting the logistics figured out for when they're going to sponsor episodes. But if you are in the market, they are extremely affordable, and our audience is growing all the time. So if you're looking for to sponsor an episode, visit our website at keystroke.medium.com and check out the sponsorship tab, and we will get you the information.
We have some pretty big episodes coming up. Some guests.
That's right.
Robert,
we have
can we say that?
Jack Campbell, Neil Asher, Michael J. Sullivan, A.G. Riddle, Ken Lazito will be on. I think I said that right. Lazito. He'll be on next Monday. Rep Bruno will be on Thursday, and then Charles the KK will be on 2 Thursdays from now. And then Josh Dazelle will be on TNL on the 1st. So a huge lineup for the next couple of months. It's going to be busy. It's going to be jam-packed with great guests. So
witty repartee as well.
Well, sometimes.
Or are you going to be there in front of Jack Campbell going, I'm too scared to talk?
I almost promise you that I'll do 2 things. No, 3 things. No, wait, 2 things. I will say something dumb, and I'll change my hat.
Indeed.
Nice.
Yeah, indeed.
That needs to be your thing, the hat changing thing.
The hat change thing. That will do that.
And at random spots, and then maybe we'll do a giveaway for somebody who can nail down when Scott changes his hat.
Right. Do just like a quick drinking game or something. I also normally, and we'll have to do this next time, Armand, I normally ask people about their characters and who their
oh no, do it. We got time.
Favorite. Okay. Yeah. With all the stuff you've written, I mean, you can pick any of your series, obviously, but one of the questions I always like to ask is, do you have a favorite non-primary character that you like to write?
Yeah, in Dying Days, when way back in like 2010, I did a Kickstarter for the second book, and that was before every author was doing Kickstarters. I think there was like 2 on there at that point. And I gave it a shot, and basically one of the things was you can be a character in the book, and I'm going to kill you. And I got about 10 different people who did it. And one of the characters was this woman that I really didn't know too well, Tasha Shorb, just cute little redhead, total into metal. She was like this cool metal chick. And when I started writing the Tasha character, she also had a sister, a twin sister, so there's 2 of them. And that character is through all the books now. I mean, that's become a character that sometimes people like, I love that character more than Darlene Bobbich, the main character, because she's like complete opposite of her. She's just a badass, and she just does crazy things. And the cool part was when I basically sat down with Tasha and said, hey, what can I not do? And she's like, do anything you want. I'm like, can I make her like a bitch? Yeah. Can I make her a lesbian or bisexual? Yeah, do whatever. I don't care. Do whatever you want with the character. So that was pretty cool. That was the character that I can do anything that I wanted with. And I've done some really crazy stuff with her in the Dying Days series. But that's easily my favorite. And there's people who will actually say, God, I can't wait for her to die, stuff like that, because they hate her so much, which to me is that means that it's working.
You struck an emotional chord. You got some reaction. That's always awesome.
Sometimes those are the best characters, the ones that are the most hated.
Yeah. Yep. The characters that basically people are like indifferent to, I either want you to love the character or hate the character. But if you're in the middle somewhere, that means I'm not doing my job as a writer. I'm not making you, I'll watch a show with my wife, we'll watch TV shows or whatever, and she says, God, I hate this person so much. And I think, well, then it's working.
Yeah. And guess what? We're going to watch it next week too.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
It's like the old Negan thing, isn't it? Everyone thinks he's a horrible person, but he's such a compelling character to watch.
Yeah, but he's a pretty bad guy. I mean, he's a pretty bad dude.
I've only got past the first couple episodes, so we'll see. It'd be tough. My example I always use is like Sandor Clegane from the Game of Thrones. If you read the books, so I read all 5 books like 3 times, or listened to them technically. And in the first time you go through, you're like, I hate this guy. He killed the butcher's boy. What a bastard! But by about 3 or 4 books, he's sticking up for Sansa, he's doing all this stuff, and he's kind of a rebel and stuff. And then you go back and I finish the series, and then I read it again from the beginning. And so when I meet him again for the first time, I'm like, this guy's a bad guy. Why did I like him at the end of book 3?
Nice.
So very complicated. I like complicated sometimes.
Complicated is good. Well, that's it for the show, guys. It has been a fantastic show. Armand, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it. It was a great time, as always.
No, that was great. 2 out of 3 you guys were very cool. So,
do we get to decide which 2?
We'll take a reader poll.
guys fight
it
it.
is, and we'll offer
2 out of
some-
the 4.
We'll offer some bribes up and stuff like that, and it'd be like a big political campaign. All fear rejection.
Everybody that watched live, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. If you're listening later or watching later on the feed, hey, thanks for showing up and watching. Let us know what you thought about the show in the comments. Give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We appreciate it. Give the show a rating and review on iTunes if you've got time. For Ralph Kern and Scott Moon, I'm Josh Hayes. We have been live with Armand Rosamilia. Tried to do that like a baseball thing and it didn't work out.
Got it.
Yeah. Be sure you come back next week. Well, we're going to be talking about writing. We'll talk about some reading and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys have a great Monday.
Thanks, everyone.